Welcome back. This is TarHeelIllustrated.com with another Three Things. I'm Tar Heel Illustrated staff Chelsea Sipple. This is Tar Heel Illustrated publisher Andrew Jones, and we are back with another Three Things. We're going to be talking about Carolina's loss to Georgia Tech, Carolina 73, Georgia Tech 74. And I mean, AJ, first off, if you want to let them know, I'm in my dorm room right now. You are at, remind me of the arena, McCamish?
It's McCamish Pavilion. Used to be Alexander Memorial Coliseum and the Thriller Dome. It was Thriller tonight, but it's McCamish Pavilion. This is an engineering school. It's right in the middle of campus, or the flats as they call it, and the Wi-Fi is as bad as it gets. The only other place worse with Wi-Fi is Syracuse, and that's the JMA Wireless Dome. They're named after a wireless company, and the Wi-Fi sucks up there. So it's really bad here. It's going to take forever to get the interviews, post-game interviews uploaded. So we'll get this done, and then I'll get cranking on that. And it's a good thing I have a 9 a.m. flight. I think I have enough time to get the interviews posted.
Hopefully. The viewers are waiting. Well, so let's talk about what our first thing from this loss is. Carolina shooting did not look great. AJ, the Heel shot 36.4%, and Ingram and Ryan combined were 6 for 28. I mean, this is so off from what we've seen in the past. RJ was 11 for 24. I mean, free throws too. UNC was 9 for 17. All around, this is not great shooting.
They didn't have it. They didn't have it tonight. Mm-hmm. You could tell a little bit. They were playing fast. Hubert actually said they played a little faster than they wanted to early. And it looked like they were going to score 50 points in the first half, but then they hit a wall. They were up 11. Cormac hit a 3 to go up 36-25. And they just weren't good after that. Georgia Tech closed the half on a 12-1 run. And it was Carolina's defense wasn't great, but they were just missing shots. They looked a little rushed on offense at times late in the game. Last 10 minutes, I thought that they didn't display the kind of poise we've seen from them this season, and certainly in the 10-game win streak. They just looked off. The players, well, we're going to get into the players, what they said about Georgia Tech wanting it more, but I just thought that a lot of the possessions looked strained. RJ had 28, I think, 11 for 24. They can live with 11 for 24 if the other guys are hitting. But the 24 shots he took, a lot of them were highly contested. And that last one was very contested. It may or may not have been a foul. He didn't really want to get into it. I saw him from my spot. He's on the floor, and he's looking up to Ted Valentine as he jogs off. Valentine didn't bother looking at him. Or he may have glanced but kept going. You know, it is what it is. The games are played by humans and they're officiated by humans, and Carolina didn't lose because that call wasn't made. Carolina lost because the Tar Heels didn't play well tonight.
Yeah.
In a game where they outscored Georgia Tech 23-8 in second chance points, held Georgia Tech in its building to 41% from the field, you should win. And they didn't, because they did a lot of things poorly. You mentioned the free throws. They missed they were 1 for 6 to close the half on free throws, and they were 1 for 10, 1 for 11 from the field. And they were missing some open shots, but it just didn't look that smooth. Harrison looked a little rushed all night. We noticed that on press row early in the game. He looked a little chippier than usual. And it's interesting because it wasn't like this was a daunting environment. I would say the crowd was almost split. There were a ton of Carolina fans here. I even jokingly tweeted out that this was supposed to be a whiteout, Chelsea, but it was also a modified Carolina blue out. There were a ton of Carolina fans here. Oh, there were tons. I don't know.
But that's good.
I don't know what this place holds. This place holds around 9,000, so I'm guessing there are about 44,000 Carolina fans here at least. Up where we were surrounded by Carolina fans. I actually had people in the hallway out in the concourse say stuff to me. It's a road game. And they have Carolina does have a lot of fans in this area. I think it's the largest contingent of alums outside the state of North Carolina. So they're usually going to draw pretty well here. But the fans that came here expecting to see the number 3 team in the country, they saw them struggle. What Carolina did tonight is what Kansas has done the last few Saturdays, especially when they went and lost at Central Florida. And then they lost, I can't remember, they lost at West Virginia. This is going to happen. This is not an alarming performance. This is not one of those, well, hey, maybe we thought they were more than they really are. It's not that at all, because they missed open shots, although I think that they were hurried. I thought that Cormac had an open shot right over here. I'll kind of show you where I am right here on the court. He had an open shot right over here midway through the second half, and he shot it, looked like before he even got a handle of it. He looked rushed to me. He didn't look comfortable. This was probably his worst game as a Tar Heel. And sometimes the ball doesn't go in. But I think this was about a lot more than the ball not going in. I think that the mojo that they've had for a long time wasn't totally there. And because of that, the other stuff doesn't come either. It's not with it. So, like in baseball, if you're not totally locked in, you could have some nice looking cuts. But if you're not locked in, you're a split second late, you're not going to hit the ball. So, this is kind of like that. This was kind of one of those nights. They just, in baseball parlance, if you may, or if you will, they were 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. They get to wear the golden sombrero in the airport. But the baseball people understand what I'm talking about, Chelsea. But I'm looking out here in the court right now, and I can think of so many sequences in the game where it just looked like they were going to lose. And I've been saying for a while with you, and when I've done these with Jacob, that there were games I never thought they were going to lose, even though it was close, like Saturday at Florida State. I just never thought that they weren't going to make the plays to win. Tonight, once Georgia Tech had 5 offensive rebounds in the first 2.5 minutes of the second half, I thought to myself, okay, RJ is going to need to score like 35 for them to win this game. They just didn't have it. Armando got yanked because of all those offensive rebounds. Hubert chewed him out. Armando sat for about 6.5 minutes. Elliot Cadeau, 5 fouls in 7.5 minutes in the second half. I mean, we could point to a lot of things, and it ain't got nothing to do with that no call in the last play. Yeah, that could have affected things, but Carolina put themselves in that position. To be perfectly honest with you, Chelsea, the team that won the game was a team that deserved to win the most. So it happens. Teams lose, and Carolina will move on and try to gain from this because they gained from losses in December, the UConn and Kentucky games. So they have an opportunity now to gain from this.
Absolutely. And AJ, you talked about this. We've got them playing rush, chippy. They weren't fully there. Talk about what you heard in those, post-game interviews where I think from fans too, it really looked like Georgia Tech wanted it more and Carolina wasn't fully there. What did the Carolina team have to say about that?
We talked to RJ, Armando, and Harrison afterward out in the hallway outside the locker room, and they all said it. Now, RJ said it a couple of times, and I asked him to sort of elaborate on it. And just one of those things that happens sometimes. It's human nature. Mac Brown loves to say, or often says, that football, you're only going to totally have your A game maybe 2 to 4 times a year. Then you get a B+ game about 4 or 5 times, and you got to figure out how to win those C- games. This was a C- game or a D+ game, and they didn't figure out a way to win it. They had the ball in the right guy's hands to make a shot. If RJ hits that shot, or if the foul's called and he hits 2 free throws, he goes for 30. They escape with a win, and we're talking about, man, the survive and advance mode of this win. That's like winning a second round NCAA tournament game and all that, but it didn't happen. And it didn't happen because the aggregate of the game put them in that position and they didn't make the play. If they would have made plays earlier, they wouldn't have needed that play. That was the case at Boston College. That was the case at Pittsburgh, at Clemson. They made those plays so they weren't in position to have to get a last second shot. They haven't had a last second shot in a long time. The last time they were in that situation was against Kentucky and they bungled the possession. But this one worked out well. I thought it was a beautiful play. So RJ said that Georgia Tech wanted it more. Armando said it. Harrison said it a lot. And Harrison also chalked it up. And I asked him a leading question about human nature. People who watch our videos know I talk human nature a lot because it absolutely finds itself in the fields and courts all the time. And I think this was a human nature game. It was Georgia Tech was sky high. It was a huge game for them. They had confidence enough because they had already beaten Duke in this building about 6 weeks ago. And the Tar Heels, 10 straight wins, kind of ripe for something like this to happen. And Tech just had the energy. Like I said, though, I was talking to one of the guys in the media afterward. This was up in the press room, I guess, after all the interviews were done. And I said, when it was 36-25, I thought Carolina was just going to pull away and they would put these guys away. And they didn't. Yeah. And when they didn't do it, it's because Georgia Tech had a lot more energy. They had a lot more passion to close out that half. That was the 12-1 run that closed it out because it ended up, 37 all at the half or 39, 37 Georgia Tech, something like that. So, and Carolina hit that, when he hit that 3, it was Cormac. It was 36-25. So that was the 3 inside there. So that they were bad. They weren't really good, and it happens. And I think it would be disappointing for a lot of fans to think, well, another team played harder. But it's going to happen sometimes. And I think that in the end, this team can get a lot out of this. Dean Smith used to say, you learn more from a 1-point win than if you lose, because a lot of people say, well, you need to lose to learn things sometimes. I don't think this club has to lose. I think they know how to learn from mistakes, but maybe this was an okay thing to happen long term, simply because they were going to lose. Now they don't have to worry about going unbeaten in the ACC. They've become the talk of the nation in the last week and a half. Maybe that chills some of that with respect to what's coming up. The game is always sort of different from the rest of the season. So I think it gives them a chance to evaluate some things and recognize that a 2-7 team in the league that had lost 8 out of 9 games can beat you, and they can beat you if they take it to you and you allow them to take it to you. So I think the players volunteering that information was pretty interesting, especially right after the game. Sometimes they're a little bit reserved in a loss. They weren't that reserved. They were pretty expressive about this. So I think that they understand. They know. They're on the flight right now, or probably at the airport right now, and they understand why they lost the game. They're not going to see something on the film tomorrow. They're going to say, oh my gosh, didn't see that coming. So they know.
Yeah. Well, AJ, we got to talk about what this means for the Tar Heels. This does put an end to their, undefeated play in ACC games. And we got a big rivalry coming up Saturday. So moving forward for the Tar Heels, what does this look like for this next game, Duke, and really the rest of the season?
Well, I think what this means is some of the stuff we've been talking about. Guys are going to have bad shooting nights. Let's face it. If you want to flip it around a little bit, Chelsea, Cormac and Harrison were combined 6 for 28 from the floor. Elliot Cadeau fouled out, committing 5 fouls in 7.5 minutes in the second half. Other than Jalen Washington, Carolina struggled shooting free throws. Jalen gave him a nice little stretch there. Armando didn't get anything offensively in the second half. They were doubling them, tripling them, and they had a shot to win it at the buzzer. So what this means is that even when this team plays its worst game of the year on the road against a team that's beaten Duke, Mississippi State, and won at Clemson, it's not like Georgia Tech stinks. They're better than Louisville. They're better than Notre Dame, even though they lost to Notre Dame here. I think what it tells us is that this is a really good team that just had one of these nights. It happens. Go back and look at Dean's teams. It happened to them too. It happens to everybody every once in a while. And I also think the really good thing is that it gives them an opportunity to fully insulate right now. And what I mean by that is sometimes when RJ's getting all these awards and everyone's talking about Final Four, number 1 seed, and it seems like the Joe Lenardis of the world are everywhere, and these kids that can't avoid it, sometimes you're looking too far outside the program. Now they get to look totally at themselves. And I go back to 2 years ago, the week of the last game against Duke in the regular season, Coach K's last home game. Hubert handled that beautifully because he fully insulated his team. He said, we don't care what's happening there. We don't care that it's his last game. We don't care what they're playing for. We don't care that they have 100 some odd former players there, a bunch of legends and all that stuff. We need to do what we do, and we're going to be okay if we do. So this gives him an opportunity. They're off tomorrow. They practice Thursday and Friday to fully insulate because there's a lot of buzz. Of course, we're going to have a press availability interviews on Thursday, not Friday. We always have 2 days before the Duke game. But it still gives them a chance to fully insulate. I think that's good because you're going into February. They've been a really good team. They're a number 1 seed type of team, and now they have an opportunity to insulate. And they should improve because they did this after Kentucky. So now they have a chance to do it again. So what does this mean? It means that they have a chance to learn from this. They're halfway through the ACC schedule now. They still got 10 games left. They have 4 road games. Their road games in the league are Duke, Virginia, Miami, and Syracuse. Those are all losable games. They don't have anybody left on the road that's Georgia Tech, to be perfectly frank. And that's with Georgia Tech playing well at times. So they got to get better, and they're going to get better by insulating, focusing on themselves, and not ignoring all of the things that earmark this performance tonight.
Absolutely. Well, I think moving forward, let's see how they do Saturday against Duke. Big weekend here in Chapel Hill. And also, if you're watching, 3 things. If you're pulling for the Tar Heels to win this Saturday, go ahead, like and subscribe, TarHeelIllustrated.com. Again, this is Andrew Jones, Tar Heel Illustrated publisher, and I'm Chelsea Sipple, Tar Heel Illustrated staff.